Elias slammed his palm against the console, fingers trembling. Come on, he muttered, voice barely above a whisper amid the wailing alarms. The alien probe lay before him, sleek, cold, and utterly inscrutable. Tiny lights blinked erratically along its surface, casting eerie shadows on the stark metal walls of Sentinel-7. Sweat beaded at his temple as he worked, hands moving with practiced precision, yet heart pounding like a war drum inside his chest. The warning sirens pierced the tense silence, a relentless shriek that grated against his nerves. Gods, why now? He cursed under his breath, wrenching a delicate panel free to expose a nest of tangled circuits unlike anything he'd seen. His eyes darted to the blinking red light on the probe's core. It was the last thing he wanted, activation. His throat tightened, the thought of what the probe's signal might trigger sent a cold shiver down his spine. "Elias, status report," crackled a voice over the comm channel. It was Commander Ray's, sharp and impatient. Elias hesitated, swallowing hard. Every instinct screamed to lie, to say the probe was offline, but his hands betrayed him, fumbling with the alien tech. "Still working, Commander," he replied, voice strained. Inside, his mind raced. Is this the moment I'm exposed? Am I betraying humanity or protecting it? The probe's origin was a mystery wrapped in treachery. He'd spent months here, in near-perfect solitude, piecing together its secrets. His past as a celebrated engineer on Earth seemed distant now, replaced by this suffocating isolation and the weight of a secret he wasn't sure he wanted to keep. The signal flared again. A high-pitched hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor beneath his boots. Elias froze, breath caught in his throat. The probe was sending out a message, somewhere to someone or something. His fingers hovered over the controls, torn between shutting it down and letting it transmit. "I can't let this get out," he whispered, voice cracking. "But what if stopping it is worse?" The station's life support hum thrummed around him, a fragile pulse of normalcy amid chaos. He glanced at the viewport, beyond the maintenance bay. The infinite blackness of space stared back, indifferent. He took a shaky breath and plunged his hands into the probe's innards again. The wires were delicate, almost organic, pulsing faintly beneath his touch. His mind flashed back to Earth, his life before Sentinel-7. Once he had been a rising star in the engineering corps, praised for innovation and precision. Now he was reduced to a solitary custodian of an enigma that might topple civilizations. "Why me?" he muttered, fingers deftly twisting a connector loose. The probe shuddered, lights flickering in protest. His heart hammered louder. The station's alarms echoed his panic, but there was no time to hesitate. If this signal reached the wrong ears, whether human or alien, unimaginable consequences would follow. His wrist console beeped, displaying a blinking icon. Unauthorized transmission detected. Elias cursed. "Damn it, no one's supposed to know about this," he hissed, sweat stinging his eyes. The probe's signal was a silent scream in the void, a beacon that might draw predators or saviors. Neither prospect comforted him. Fingers trembling, he tapped commands to initiate a shutdown sequence, but the probe resisted, its circuitry alive with an alien will. Come on," he pleaded, voice breaking. The signal's pitch rose, a shrill cry slicing through the station's corridors. He clamped his free hand over his mouth, heart sinking. The internal conflict gnawed at him. If I stop this, do I doom us all to ignorance? If I don't, do I curse us to destruction? His loyalty was a fractured mirror, reflecting fear, suspicion, and a desperate hope that he wasn't the villain in this story. Suddenly, the probe emitted a pulse of light, a silent transmission that rippled through the station's sensors. Elias staggered back, breath ragged. The alarms ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie stillness. The probe lay dormant once more, but the damage was done. His comm crackled again. "Elias, report!" Commander Ray's voice was sharper now, edged with suspicion. Elias swallowed his fear, voice steady despite the turmoil. "Signal sent, probe inactive." He wiped a hand across his face, staring at the probe as if it might reveal its secrets in his gaze. "What have I done?" he whispered into the silence, knowing the station and perhaps humanity would never be the same. Elia's fingers hovered over the probe's casing, hesitation thick in the air. "This isn't just a repair job," I admitted aloud, voice low and rough, the sterile hum of Sentinel-7's systems buzzing around me like a restless swarm. The probe was unlike anything I'd ever touched. Its sleek surface was cool, almost unnervingly smooth. But beneath that deceptive exterior, it pulsed with a subtle energy I couldn't yet decode. My training screamed to proceed cautiously, but a gnawing sense of unease tightened my chest. I glanced down at the cluster of damaged equipment scattered across the maintenance bay floor. The probe nestled among them like a secret waiting to be unearthed. Its alien design challenged every diagnostic tool I had. "Standard protocols don't apply here," I muttered, tracing the faint, iridescent lines etched into the probe's hull. "This tech isn't from any known faction. It's advanced. Too advanced." As my hands adjusted the delicate instruments around the device, a sudden flicker caught my eye. A brief power fluctuation rippled across the probe's surface, like a heartbeat skipping a beat. I jerked back, heart pounding harder. "No, no, no," I whispered, voice trembling despite my efforts to steady it. In all my time volunteering for covert ops, I'd never encountered tech that fought back like this. The comm panel crackled to life, slicing through the silence. "Elias, do you copy? Command here." The voice was clipped, urgent, but beneath the professionalism, I detected something darker, fear, maybe even suspicion. I swallowed hard, fingers tightening into fists. "Copy, command. I'm here," I replied, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. "Be advised. Recent intel indicates possible alien surveillance devices infiltrating our perimeter. If the probe you recovered matches the description, exercise extreme caution. Do not engage beyond diagnostics until further notice." I exhaled slowly, the weight of those words settling heavily on my shoulders. Surveillance devices. Alien eyes watching us in the shadows. The thought sent a cold shiver down my spine. My past haunted me, family gone, casualties of the skirmishes that had scarred my soul and driven me into this clandestine existence. Every mission, every whispered command, was laced with the hope of protection and the crushing cost of deception. "Understood, command," I said, voice firmer now, though doubt gnawed at me. I glanced back at the probe. Its lights flickered erratically, pulsing in a rhythm that defied logic. The power surge had been no accident. Something was hidden inside, something the probe didn't want me to find. I crouched beside the device, pulling out my toolkit. Each instrument gleamed under the harsh, artificial light, sterile and precise. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," I muttered, my fingers deftly removing a panel. Inside, the circuitry was mesmerizing, alien yet elegant, a lattice of shimmering strands that seemed almost organic. As I ran a handheld scanner over the circuits, the readings defied every protocol. The probe resisted diagnostics, emitting faint bursts of electromagnetic interference. "Come on, talk to me," I whispered, feeling like I was trying to coax a frightened animal from hiding. Suddenly, the probe emitted a low hum, vibrations rippling through the floor plates beneath my boots. I froze, breath caught mid-exhale. The hum escalated into a soft whine, almost melodic, as if the device was alive, aware. My fingers hovered uncertainly over the controls, torn between curiosity and caution. "Damn it," I hissed under my breath. "What are you trying to say?" The line between tool and weapon blurred. This wasn't just tech to be fixed. It was a message, a threat, or a plea, and I was caught in the middle. An uneasy silence settled, broken only by the faint beeping of my wrist console. A new alert blinked. Unauthorized transmission detected. My heart sank deeper. "No one's supposed to know about this," I muttered, sweat beading at my temple. The probe's signal was a silent scream into the void, a beacon that could draw predators or saviors. Either possibility terrified me. I debated internally, fingers trembling as I typed commands to initiate a shutdown sequence. The probe resisted, circuits sparking faintly as though rejecting my efforts. "Come on," I pleaded, voice cracking. "Stop!" The whine climbed into a piercing note, slicing through the station's corridors like a siren. I clamped my hand over my mouth, fighting a surge of panic that threatened to overwhelm me. If I disable this, do I silence a warning or doom us to ignorance? If I don't, do I invite destruction? The weight of my duty pressed down like a vice. I was resourceful, trained for moments like this, but the moral cost, the lies, the betrayals, gnawed at my soul. Espionage was a necessary evil, or so I told myself. Protect humanity by any means. Yet the faces of those I'd lost flickered behind my eyes, their silent accusations piercing deeper than any alarm. Then, without warning, the probe pulsed, an intense flare of light expanding from its core, rippling through the station's sensors. I stumbled back, breath ragged, heart hammering against my ribs. The alarms ceased abruptly, replaced by a chilling stillness that wrapped around me like a shroud. "Elia's report!" Commander Reyes' voice crackled urgently over the comm, sharp, impatient, but laced with suspicion. I steadied myself, voice firm despite the turmoil. "Signal sent, probe inactive." I wiped a clammy hand across my face, eyes locked on the probe's dormant shell. "What have I done?" I whispered into the heavy silence, knowing that this moment had shifted everything. The station's cold metal walls seemed to close in, the vast emptiness of space beyond the viewport staring back with indifferent eyes. The line between protector and pawn blurred. I was trapped in the gray shadows of duty and doubt, a lone sentinel standing guard against threats, both external and internal. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice asked, had I just opened a door that should have remained closed? The probe's lights flickered again, brief, erratic pulses cutting through the dim of Sentinel-7's maintenance bay. My fingers twitched on the console, the temptation to shut it down warring with an unsettling curiosity. "What are you trying to tell me?" I muttered, leaning closer, eyes narrowing at the enigmatic device. It wasn't acting like broken equipment. This was something else, something alive or at least aware. The hum that had become almost a constant drone shifted, breaking into intermittent bursts of signal, crackling and fizzing like static on an old radio. I leaned back, heart pounding in rhythm with its erratic chatter. The edges of my vision blurred as adrenaline mixed with dread. Is it trying to report something? The thought gnawed at my mind. Or is it calling for help? A sudden sharp beep from my wrist console yanked me back. Unauthorized transmissions detected. My breath hitched. "Damn it!" I hissed, wiping the sweat from my brow. The probe was broadcasting again, sending signals I couldn't decipher, to an unknown destination. The implications churned in my gut like a storm. Was it reporting to alien forces? Was Earth's safety already compromised? The room felt claustrophobic now, the sterile walls closing in. I swallowed hard, jaw tight. "I can't just report this as a malfunction," I whispered to myself. "They'd quarantine it, maybe destroy it, or worse, use it against us." The weight of secrecy settled heavily on my shoulders. Months spent unraveling this mystery, only to realize I might be the one holding the key to an alien invasion. My fingers hesitated, then moved with purpose, pulling up the probe's internal systems on the console. The interface was alien, cryptic symbols and encrypted data streams scrolling endlessly. I frowned. "Encryption's too advanced for anything I've encountered," I muttered. But stubbornness gnawed at me. If I could crack this, maybe I could control what it sent, turn it into a tool rather than a weapon. Minutes bled into hours as I worked, fingers dancing over keys, hacking through layers of security. Beads of sweat traced cold paths down my temples. The probe's light pulsed softly, a silent rhythm beneath my assault. Then, buried deep, I found it. Streams of data labeled in a language I barely recognized, but understood enough to grasp the terrifying truth. "This isn't just a probe," I breathed, voice barely audible. "It's a spy device." My heart hammered against my ribs, a heavy drumbeat of fear and disbelief. Alien intelligence was watching us, mapping our defenses, monitoring our systems, and I'd been fiddling with their eyes and ears. A cold wave of nausea swept over me. What have I done? The words escaped before I could stop them. The very work I'd been so proud of, decoding, repairing, could hand over Earth's secrets on a silver platter. The thought was suffocating. My comm crackled. "Elia's status update." Commander Ray's voice cut through the tension, sharp and probing. I swallowed, voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'm still working. The probe, it's more than we thought." There was a pause, then a low warning. "Be cautious. Remember your orders." Orders? I clenched my fists beneath the console. Orders to report, to investigate, to neutralize threats. But this was different. I wasn't just dealing with a machine. I was staring into the abyss of an alien agenda. A sudden pulse surged through the probe, and a warning flashed across my screen. Autonomous defense system activated. My breath hitched. The probe's lights flared, casting jagged shadows that danced across the walls. A low, thrumming vibration filled the air, like a beast awakening. "Shit," I muttered, fingers scrambling. The console beeped frantically as security protocols locked me out. The probe was fighting back, its defenses no longer passive. "Elia's report." Ray's voice cracked with urgency. "What's happening?" I swallowed the lump in my throat, voice tight. "The probe's defending itself. It's active." The probe's surface shifted, panels sliding open to reveal a cluster of small, needle-like emitters aimed directly at me. My heart slammed against my ribs as a piercing pulse shot through the air, knocking me backward into the cold metal wall. Pain flared in my side, sharp and sudden. I gasped, clutching the wound, eyes fixed on the probe's relentless glow. "Damn you," I hissed, pushing myself up. The room spun, but I forced my legs to move. Panic and resolve collided inside me. I can't let this thing win. But if I destroy it, I lose the chance to control what it tells the enemy. If I let it live, I risk my life and Earth's. I forced myself to focus, fingers trembling but determined. Pulling up the data stream again, I began manipulating the encrypted files, feeding false coordinates, scrambled intelligence, phantom fleet movements. The probe's signals flickered, confused by the misinformation. A cold sweat slicked my skin as I whispered, "Let's see if you like being lied to." The tension was suffocating. Every beep, every pulse was a countdown. I could feel Ray's eyes through the comm, suspecting, waiting. But I couldn't tell her the truth, not yet. This deception might buy us time. The probe's defense emitters retracted slowly, the glow dimming. The room's hum returned to a dull background noise. I sagged against the console, breath ragged, mind racing. "What have I become?" I whispered. The line between savior and saboteur blurred until I couldn't tell which side I'd fallen on. My fingers hovered over the comm button. "Commander Ray's," I said finally, voice steady despite the turmoil. "The probe is stable. I'm sending updates." There was silence, then a cautious, "Understood." The weight of what I'd done pressed down, heavier than any armor. I'd turned the enemy's eyes against themselves, but the cost was a wound inside me, one that might never heal. As the probe's lights dimmed to a steady glow, I stared at the viewport beyond. Space stretched infinitely, cold and indifferent. Somewhere out there, unseen watchers waited, and thanks to me, they might be looking right back. Elia's breath hitched as the console blinked insistently. Alien signals intensifying, broadcasting like a rising tide ready to break. "They're mobilizing," I whispered, voice barely audible over the low hum of Sentinel-7 systems. My fingers trembled on the controls as the flood of incoming data confirmed the worst. The fleet was moving, based on the false coordinates I'd fed them. Every digit, every byte I'd manipulated was now a thread in a deadly web tightening across the void. A crackling voice snapped through the comm. Commander Ray's tone sharp and urgent. "Elia's, we've confirmed the trap is set at the coordinates you supplied. Enemy fleet is lured right into our ambush." My heart thudded painfully. The stakes had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined when I first touched the probe. "Stay the course," Ray's ordered. "You need to keep the deception active. We're counting on you." I closed my eyes for a moment, swallowing the bitter taste of exhaustion and doubt. My mind reeled, shadows of fear clawing at the edges of my resolve. Am I just a pawn? The thought gnawed relentlessly. A tool wielded by commanders who never see the cost in blood and broken souls. Each falsified transmission, each hacked byte, felt like another link, binding me tighter to a war whose rules I barely understood. Commander, I finally answered, voice rough and raw. This isn't just data manipulation. I'm in deeper than I thought. The probe fights back. It adapts. If I push it too hard, I trailed off, the unspoken threat hanging heavy in the recycled air. Ray's silence was brief, but filled with weight. Keep going. We can't afford to pull back now. The console's glow painted my face in sickly green hues as I stared at the streams of alien code writhing across the screen. My fingers danced nervously, fingers aching with the strain of endless commands. Each keystroke was a gamble, a calculated risk with my life and humanity's fate balanced on a knife's edge. The station's sterile lights blurred as fatigue pressed down like a leaden shroud. A sudden spike in the signal made me jerk upright, heart hammering. They're responding, I muttered, voice tight. The enemy fleet's movement was accelerating, their sensors pulsing, hunting with ruthless precision. If this trap fails, cold dread clenched my gut. The thought was unbearable. I leaned back, rubbing my temple as a flood of memories surged unbidden. The faces of comrades lost in skirmishes, the weight of promises made and broken. How many more will die because of me? The silence around me was suffocating, pierced only by the steady beep of the console and my ragged breathing. Elias, we need a status update. Ray's voice came again, less sharp now, but threaded with urgency and something like concern. You holding up? I hesitated. I'm managing, but I fear I'm losing myself in this. The lines between right and wrong, they're blurring. I'm not sure if I'm saving lives or sealing graves. The words tasted bitter, but I said them anyway. This deception, it's a poison. I don't know how much longer I can keep it up. There was a long pause. Then Ray's answered quietly, You're the only one who can do this, Elias. We trust you. Remember why you're here. Her voice, steady and unwavering, was a fragile lifeline. I swallowed hard, nodding even though she couldn't see me. All right, I whispered, fingers settling back on the console with renewed determination. I'm committing fully. No half measures. If this trap is to work, I have to risk everything, even if it means losing myself in the process. The probe's lights flickered ominously as I initiated the next phase of the hack. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as tension coiled inside me like a living thing. My hands moved with a desperate precision, rerouting data streams, injecting false fleet movements, scrambling sensors, all designed to bait the enemy into the kill zone. A sudden jolt rocked the station, the lights flickering violently. I stumbled, catching myself against the console. Damn it, I hissed. The probe was fighting back, its defense protocols activating with a cold, calculated fury. Needles of energy lanced through the air, narrowly missing me as I ducked behind the console. Sweat stung my eyes. Breath ragged as I fought to maintain control. Come on, I muttered, voice cracking under the strain. Every system screamed in warning, circuits overloaded by the probe's resistance. The line between man and machine blurred as I battled not just technology, but the insidious will behind it. A sudden burst of static drowned the comm channel. Elia's status. Ray's voice was frantic, cutting through the chaos. Are you still with us? I gritted my teeth, blood pounding in my ears. Yes, I gasped, fingers flying over the controls. The trap's live. I'm feeding them Phantom Fleet data, false intel to lure them in deeper. But this probe, it's a beast. If I falter, it'll shut me down permanently. The probe's emitters glowed brighter, energy crackling like static electricity in the air. I felt a searing heat brush my skin, a reminder that failure meant more than just mission failure. It meant death. The line between hacker and hunted dissolved. In that electric moment, I made a choice. I pushed the hack harder, overriding safety protocols, risking system collapse. I'm not just hacking anymore. I admitted aloud, voice shaking but resolute. I'm a weapon now, the last line between this fleet and extinction. The probe shuddered, lights dimming as the trap's web tightened. Outside the viewport, silent stars blinked indifferently, unaware of the battle unfolding inside this small station. When the signals finally stabilized, a weary silence settled. I slumped back, muscles trembling, heart thudding like a frantic drum. "It's done," I whispered, voice hoarse. "The trap's set. The enemy fleet is walking right into it." But beneath the relief, a cold question lingered, gnawing at my soul. At what cost? The victories I'd forged in code were stained with shadows. Shadows of doubt, fear, and the faint. Haunting echo of a man who'd risked everything, and wondered if he'd lost himself along the way. I stared out into the void, the blackness pressing against the viewport like the weight of all those unseen stars. Somewhere out there, the trap was closing, and somewhere inside me, the war had just begun. Elia's fingers trembled as the final signal crackled through the console. "They've taken the bait," I muttered, barely daring to breathe. Outside the viewport, the cold void of space stretched infinitely, indifferent to the carnage unfolding beyond. The alien fleet, once a looming shadow blotting out the stars, was plunging headlong into our trap. The kill zone was alive with fire and fury now, a ballet of destruction choreographed by deception and steel. The first explosion blossomed like a malevolent flower, metal twisting and shattering under the barrage of plasma pulses and missile salvos. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, the tremor of the battle vibrating through the station's hull. "Come on, hold together," I whispered, though the words felt hollow. The alien ships, sleek and deadly, fought back fiercely, but our ambush was merciless. Flashes of light exploded in rapid succession, each one a death knell for the enemy vessels. The trap was working better than anyone dared hope. Yet beneath the relief, a cold knot of guilt tightened in my gut. I had fed them lies, false fleet coordinates, phantom reinforcements, scrambled signals. Every bite of deception was another thread in the tapestry of death. I was the architect of their doom, and, in a way, their prisoner. "Elia's status." Commander Reyes' voice was sharp, but tinged with urgency over the comm. I swallowed hard, voice uneven. "They're hitting the trap. Losses are heavy, we're breaking their formation." The console blinked with incoming telemetry, enemy systems failing, ships falling silent. Victory was within reach, but the cost was invisible to the cold data streams. I sank into the chair, heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. Relief washed over me, but it was tangled with exhaustion so profound it felt like drowning. My hands shook, fingers twitching as if trying to grasp something elusive. The weight of what I'd done pressed down like a suffocating shroud. I had orchestrated a slaughter, a massacre born not of courage or honor, but of lies and manipulation. The silence that followed the battle was eerie. The station's hum felt louder now, the stillness after the storm. I closed my eyes, memories swirling unbidden. Faces of those lost in skirmishes past, the friends who'd trusted me. The innocents caught in the crossfire of a war no one wanted to admit. "What have I become?" I whispered into the empty room. Ethics felt like a distant star, flickering on the edge of my consciousness. Victory achieved through deceit. Was it truly a win? The probe, my grim ally and relentless adversary, had been both weapon and prison. I'd fed it lies to manipulate an enemy fleet, sacrificed secrets, and perhaps a part of my soul. The burden of silence was mine alone to bear. Days later, the station's corridors were quieter than usual as I walked toward the command center. The usual bustle of technicians and officers had dulled to a respectful hush. A small gathering awaited me. Commander Reyes, a few senior officers. Their expressions were solemn, not celebratory. The space station honored me quietly, a muted recognition of a grim victory. "Elias," Reyes said, her voice steady but gentle, "you've done something no one else could. The fleet's destruction has bought us time, time we desperately need." She nodded, the weight of command evident in her eyes. "But I know this isn't easy. You carry more than just the burden of the mission." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It's not easy at all, I admitted. I thought I was prepared for this, for the lies, the sacrifices. But the truth is, it's worse than I imagined. Every victory feels hollow, every secret a wound. They said nothing more, their silence speaking volumes. I turned away, stepping back into the solitude that had become my refuge and my cage. The psychological toll was relentless. Nights stretched long and cold as I wrestled with the shadows inside me. Sleep was a stranger, guilt a constant companion. I was isolated not just by duty, but by the knowledge that no one else could understand the choices I'd made. Alone in my quarters, I stared out at the stars, their light fragile and distant. Somewhere out there, new threats waited in the darkness. The line between survival and humanity was razor thin, a fragile thread I clung to with trembling hands. I whispered to the void, "We won this battle, but the war isn't over." Hope flickered faintly, fragile, wary, but it was there, a stubborn ember in the cold expanse. I didn't know what future conflicts awaited us, what shadows would fall across the stars next, but I knew this. Survival demanded sacrifice, and humanity's true strength lay not just in firepower or deception, but in the resilience of the heart. As the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, I settled into the quiet darkness, resolved to face whatever came next. The cost of victory was high, but so was the price of surrender. And in that delicate balance, I found a reluctant peace,